You've done this!
On this episode of Old Joe's Reminiscence, with Galen injured and unable to travel, the fugitive trio seeks shelter at a farm run by a family of chimpanzees who come to fear that the humans may put a hex on them. The Good Seeds episode of the 1974 Planet of the Apes television series was the first to be filmed, but it was the fourth to air on Friday, October 4th, 1974, and the script is labeled as Episode 6. It may be the only Planet of the Apes episode where all of the characters are apes except for our two leads. The original script was about a family of farming gorillas, but gorillas are usually police or in the military, so a chimpanzee family was substituted. Based on those facts, I don't remember seeing this episode at all in 1974. Did you see it then? Or maybe more recently? If not, take note. I've had a few viewers complain about spoilers in my reviews. I'm saying it now. This review most definitely contains lots of spoilers. So, if you don't want to see spoilers, pause this review right now and watch the episode first. Without further ado, let's dig in and go over the fourth episode of the 1974 CBS television series, Planet of the Apes. The episode opens with three gorillas riding on horseback through Malibu Creek State Park. One of the gorillas notices something. He dismounts for a better look.
They were here. The tracks are fresh.
Astronauts Verdon and Burke are hiking nearby. The chimpanzee Galen is having trouble keeping up with the humans. Odd.
His tail's dragging.
Oh, chimps do not have tails.
That tail gag must have been a last-minute change after the revised final script was typed up. They decided to keep moving because they're being chased by Urko's, men. It's a scripted mistake I've noticed a few times before. I've usually been substituting troops. The nighttime scene looks to have been filmed indoors on a soundstage. Verdon is using a compass. They omitted a part of the script that had Galen wondering if that compass was witchcraft. It seemed odd since he'd already seen some other modern items that pale by comparison. Verdon says that the cloud cover will obstruct star navigation, confusing Urko's men, who will travel in circles while the compass will keep them traveling straight. No sooner do the three vacate that clearing than the gorillas ride in carrying flaming torches. They ride off in pursuit of the fugitives, and we cut to a brief scene of Galen trailing the two humans. Then, the gorillas end up back on that same clearing set, cursing the clouds. The three gorillas dismount to build a fire and set up camp until the sky clears for navigation. The many gorillas in this episode are difficult to tell one from the other, so I'll go through all of them at the end of my review. The fugitives press on through the rough terrain. Galen, who up till now has been lagging, seems to get a burst of energy. He leaps across some rocks up ahead until he suddenly slips and falls, injuring his leg. Verdon and Burke rush to Galen's aid, and they apply a tourniquet to his leg to curtail the bleeding. We cut to a morning shot of the astronauts carrying Galen on a litter that they've fabricated from branches. They come upon a quiet farmhouse. It reminds Verdon of home. We've heard Burke make an occasional off-the-cuff remark in past episodes, but he's been spouting them regularly in this one.
I'm beat. I don't care if this farmer doesn't have a daughter.
Verdon knocks and calls out at the farmhouse. He looks surprised to see an ape come to the door.
You get away from here. Now!
Verdon says his friend needs
Our
help.
friend's been hurt.
We don't help humans.
When the chimpanzee at the door discovers that the one needing help is a fellow ape, the farmer changes his tune. That patriarch farmer, Polar, is played by the longtime stage and screen actor Lonnie Chapman.
Lon Leonard Chapman was born on October 1, 1920. He grew up in Joplin, Missouri, where he became friends with fellow actor Dennis Weaver. The two hitchhiked to New York City together after World War II. There they competed for the role of Turk Fisher in the Broadway play Come Back Little Sheba. Lonnie got the part, with Dennis as his understudy. Weaver filled the role when it went on tour. Lonnie appeared on television throughout the 1950s, when most productions were based in New York. This gave him plenty of opportunity to continue performing on stage, which was his first preference. Hollywood was calling, and Lonnie answered, appearing in dozens of films such as East of Eden in 1955, Alfred Hitchcock's 1963 thriller The Birds, Where the Red Fern Grows in 1974, and Norma Ray in 1979. In addition to his film roles, Lonnie appeared in scores of television productions. He directed the group Repertory Theater for 34 years from 1973 until his death on October 12, 2007. The North Hollywood nonprofit was renamed the Lonnie Chapman Group Repertory Theater in 1999.
The whole family comes out to gawk. There's an exchange between Polar and his wife Zantes. Zantes is played by Jacqueline Scott. Looking at a list of her credits, she's been in many of my favorite shows and movies over the years.
Jacqueline Sue Scott was born in Missouri on June 25, 1931. She began appearing in front of audiences as a youngster, winning a tap dancing contest at age 3. She joined a professional community theater company from St. Louis at the age of 17. After high school, Jacqueline attended Hunter College in New York. While in New York, she took a job at RCA and studied acting. That led to several small roles on Broadway and live television appearances. Then it was off to Hollywood for her film debut in the 1958 low-budget picture Macabre. She spent the next 3 decades making scores of television guest appearances. Jacqueline Scott died on July 23, 2020, just a month after her screenwriter husband of 63 years, Gene Lesser.
The eldest son is Anto. He's played by 31-year-old character actor Jeffrey Deuel, best known as Billy the Kid Bonney in 1970's Chisholm. The youngest male chimpanzee is Remus. He's played by Bobby Porter, who, if you remember, had played another young chimp named Arno in the series' very first episode. That quip Burke had made about a farmer's daughter may not have been too far off the mark, but not for him, for Galen. The daughter, Julia, is played by Eileen Dietz Elber.
Eileen Dietz and her twin sister were born on January 11, 1944 in New York. When they were just 6 weeks old, the twins appeared in a soap detergent television commercial. By the age of 12, Eileen had begun studies at the neighborhood playhouse. She appeared on television in a small role on The Doctors in 1963 and as a recurring character on Love of Life. Eileen made her film debut as Ellie in the 1966 film Teenage Gang Debs using the stage name Eileen Scott. She appeared uncredited as the Demon's Face and in a few other brief scenes in The Exorcist. Eileen spent much of her time on stage and on television. When it comes to films, she performs primarily in horror films. 80-year-old Eileen Dietz is currently producing 2 films that are in post-production.
Polar has the humans wait in the barn while he and his sickle-wielding son Anto carry the litter inside. Verdon and Burke enter the barn and quickly fall asleep on a bed of straw. In the morning, Anto rushes in the barn and pokes Burke in the behind with a pitchfork. I guess he has a thing for sharp instruments. He wants to know why the two had slept so near to the cow. He says the humans are a curse to cows. He's been waiting 5 years for a bull to be born so he can start a farm of his own. He felt this was his year, but now the humans have arrived. Remus comes out to inform them that Galen is asking for them, but Anto insists that they wash before entering the house. Meanwhile, Xantes, who had trained to be a nurse, is tending to Galen's leg. She says that Galen won't be able to stand on that leg for a few days. Polar says it's too dangerous to have the humans around that long. Galen says that the humans will work for their keep, and Polar agrees. He goes out to see the humans. They can stay. But they're to stay away from the cow. A patrol gorilla rides up. He's looking for some escaped human slaves. There's no reason for the chimpanzees to believe that Verdon and Burke are those escaped slaves, because they'd arrived with the injured chimpanzee Galen. But Anto is wondering if there's a reward. Uh-oh. This doesn't look good.
Don't tell me your troubles. We got enough of our own.
Act 2 opens with Verdon and Polar carrying rocks while Anto plows the field. Verdon suggests that the farmers plow around the hillside, going across instead of up and down. He demonstrates. Polar agrees, but Anto thinks it's foolishness.
Now everyone knows that plowing down the hill gives the ox rest from plowing up it.
Meanwhile, Burke is building a fence. Young Remus runs out and berates him for doing it wrong, but Burke explains that what he's doing will improve the longevity of that fence. I don't understand why they're making waves. Why not just go with the flow until they're back on their way? Making such changes might just give them away to Urko's gorillas. We cut to Central City and Urko's office. That gorilla gives the excuse of cloud cover.
Could not follow them at night, sir. The clouds.
Urko wants his underling to return to the farm country to look for them. That officer says it will be slow going since the sky is still full of clouds. Urko puts his holster on. He must be going along. We cut to Verdon working back at the barn, and there's not a cloud in the sky. In fact, the sun is so very bright in the scene that a few of the corners of the video show a black hood that was used to shade the camera lens from the sun's glare. At first, it gave me the impression that someone was viewing them from afar with a spyglass, and then I realized what it was. Verdon once again shows the chimpanzee farmers a different, more efficient way to do some work. And again, why is he doing that? All of a sudden, there's moaning from inside the barn. The cow is down, and Anto blames Verdon. They argue, and Polar decides to let the humans stay. But if anything happens to that cow, their fate will be up to Anto.
Now what good'll that do? Enough!
Is Anto going to turn them over to the gorillas, I wonder? Later that night, Verdon notices that they're using the smallest ears of corn for seed. He said that's why their crops keep getting smaller year after year. I would think that over the years, regardless of how primitive the ape society might be, they probably would have learned quite a bit about their chosen line of work. Trial and error should have taught them something, at the very least. Here, Verdon recounts having a similar conversation with his son, and it makes him sad.
They have feelings, too.
Meanwhile, Anto visits the patrol garrison. He wants to know if there'd be a reward for turning over the escaped slaves. The gorilla there sends him away. That patrol rider who'd visited their farm becomes suspicious of Anto.
Perhaps Polar's farm needs to be Watch more closely.
Act 3 opens with the camera panning across Polar's farm, and I'd swear that I saw a car go by briefly in the background. Anto is worried that the cow will die. Then he'd be waiting for another year, maybe more, before getting his farm. It's the human curse. He's sure of that. And he's discovered that Galen is now able to stand. Anto's convinced that the humans are staying there just so the cow will die. We cut to Galen hopping around on one leg with the help of a crutch. Julia comes in. She's having a difficult time trying to understand how Galen could associate with those humans. He can't explain it to her, mentioning something about her being a female.
I thought you might never notice.
Then we cut to Verdon and Burke building a windmill, of all things. Let's assume now that they get this thing working. How are the apes supposed to explain it if someone asks them about it? Anto is extremely upset.
No wonder the cow is dying.
Since Galen can stand, Polar says they should go, but Remus wants them to finish the windmill first. The three apes walk away, arguing amongst themselves. Meanwhile, Urko and a character scripted only as Gorilla 2 are making excellent progress. Back at the farmhouse, Galen demonstrates his ability to walk slowly with the aid of a crutch. He's making good progress. They discuss Anto's anxiety about the cow. Burke suggests giving the cow Epsom salts and getting out of there. Verdon reminds him that if the calf isn't a bull, they're in big trouble.
If that cow dies, Anto is entitled to kill you.
Galen just needs a few more days of rest. Verdon suggests that they could carry Galen again. Burke shakes his head at that. Then Verdon suggests getting some horses.
Only landed apes and police are allowed to have horses.
They'll have to wait. We cut to Burke trying out a new shower stall he's built. The water's cold.
I don't mind being a peasant, just so long as I have all the conveniences of the rich.
Yeah, well, even the rich don't have showers in this world. But as long as you're adding conveniences, maybe tomorrow you can put in the hot water.
With all the chores they have to do on a working farm, how do they have so much time on their hands to build these projects? Windmills, showers. A gorilla dismounts and peeks around some bushes to spy on the two humans. The length of his shadow on the ground proves the shot was taken either in the early morning or very late in the evening. With the sun so low, the lens hood is back on and visible. The gorilla quickly returns to his horse before we cut to the farm, where Anto is in the barn banging on a bell. The family comes running. Verdon and Burke go to the cow. The calf is turned wrong and premature. He tries to explain that to Anto, but the ape goes berserk and attacks him with a pitchfork.
You've done this. Wait! The cow is not dead. You can't claim a life yet.
Look, Anto, the cow doesn't need to die. I can help.
Galen limps in on his crutch. He says that it's his wound that brought them to the farm. He suggests they leave.
We'll leave. We'll all leave now.
Yeah, I'm packed and ready, I'll tell you that.
While Anto holds the pitchfork close to Verdon's neck, he instructs his brother Remus to toll the bell. We're back on the farm in the final act. The cow is dying. Remus is tolling the bell. Anto has Verdon pinned to the ground with the pitchfork. This could only get worse if Urko would show up about now. Verdon wants Polar to let him try and save the calf.
At birthing time, the fate of the cow is in the hands of the oldest son. I have no say.
Zantes speaks her mind. She's trained as a nurse. I'd think she should know something about birthing. Why doesn't she help? She pleads with Anto to let the humans help. Anyway, Burke comes up with a scheme to pretend to take Remus hostage, threatening his life. Now, I don't understand why Remus goes along with this, but he does, and Anto puts down the pitchfork. Verdon goes to the cow. He's not sure what he's going to do, but he's got to try.
Okay, sweetheart. I'm gonna do my best for you.
Meanwhile, two gorillas on horseback are riding fast and hard. Back on Polar's farm, everyone is in the barn, watching in awe as Verdon tries to get the calf lined up for delivery. Next, we see Urko and his underling. They meet up with the two patrol gorillas who assume the humans are the escapees. Urko is sure that they're his fugitives, though. All four join forces and they head to Polar's farm. Anto is exhausted from tolling the bell. Everybody's staring in anticipation. Meanwhile, Urko and the others are bearing down on the farm. Then Anto hears a moo of a calf, and Verdon shouts that he's got twin bulls.
Anto, come have a look. You hit a jackpot. Twin bulls straight across.
Does that mean he gets two farms? There's no time for celebrating. The gorillas are approaching. Polar sends the fugitives up to the hayloft before the family goes out to meet the four gorillas. And when one of the gorillas says he saw a human under the shower, Anto goes into an odd act that makes the gorillas laugh. Urko doesn't seem to be amused. Neither am I, to be honest. Anto throws flour on his face, and he struts around so that even his own family starts to laugh. He says that what the gorilla saw was him in his room where he washes the makeup off. Urko orders his officer to search the barn.
Eyes that deceive once can deceive twice.
As Urko's gorilla officer is about to reach the top of the ladder to the hayloft, he hears a calf in the stall below. He spies those newborn bulls and quickly climbs back down the ladder and runs outside to report to Urko.
No humans here, sir. Two brand new calves. They would have been eaten if there were humans around.
Now that's funny. Urko tells the local gorilla in charge to demote the patrol gorilla for making fools of them. Then they all ride off. Verdon, Burke, and Galen come out of hiding, and Anto apologizes for how he acted toward the human. Verdon says that the act Anto had put on makes them even. Anto wants Verdon to show him what they did to save the calves. Young Remus says he knows. He watched the whole thing. We cut to later. They're in the farmhouse saying their goodbyes. Xantes gives Burke a sack full of bread. Julia says goodbye to Galen, and I'm a bit troubled by the conversation the males are having with Verdon. He tells them what direction they're going to go. If Urko gets an inkling that he's been deceived, he might return to question them again. That whole family could suffer for committing treason. They'd even named their bulls Verdon and Burke, so there's that evidence. They say their goodbyes, and the three fugitives walk away into the day for night. I thought that was going to be the end of it, but we cut to the windmill in a day shot. Polar and Remus are standing there admiring the thing as a patrol rider approaches. Uh-oh. He wants to know what that contraption is and where it came from.
I made it.
He's a very bright boy.
The gorilla says that he should be working, not playing with toys in the wind. After the gorilla rides off, the farmers discuss their plans for the future of the farm. We cut to the fugitives in the woods. Galen suggests a direction to try. And then, and I mean it this time, the three walk off into the woods to end the episode.
This episode is nothing more than a mockery of the entire simian culture. It portrays apes as superstitious barbarians who ignore our duties to follow unfounded beliefs. Pure human propaganda. That first patrol rider was laughable. He would have been well within his rights to search the house and the barn, especially due to the odd behavior of the one chimpanzee called Anto. Why would a chimpanzee ask if there would be a reward if he didn't know something to be rewarded for? Riding off without further investigation was a complete dereliction of duty. That whole chimpanzee family should be tried and shot for treason after hiding those criminals. As to the gorilla who was sent into the barn to search for the fugitives, he is totally incompetent. To think that a pair of humans would eat two newborn bulls upon birth is not only silly superstition, it's totally illogical thinking. Whoever wrote this episode should be shot.
That was actually a rather good episode of Planet of the Apes, though it wasn't without its flaws, like the term Urko's men being used a total of 4 times, 3 by Verdon and once by Burke. Also, there was something that I might not have noticed if it hadn't been pointed out in the list of goofs for the episode. The character Anto's shirt sleeves rode up, exposing Jeffrey Dewell's human arms while he was holding a chicken in the air and pretending to be human.
Oh, I'm gonna have some meat! We'll have some meat! And we'll cook it good! Oh!
That happens around the 44-minute point, if you're able to watch the episode. I was surprised that the flirting between the daughter and Galen wasn't given more time. She could have done more to entice him to stay, if you ask me. And I wasn't really satisfied with the humans giving away so many advanced methods all at once. It could have exposed them while endangering the farmers, in my opinion. There was also the conversation about continuing west. Now, I'm guessing that might have worked better if this episode had played before episodes 2 and 3. Those episodes had the fugitives approaching the West Coast and the area in and around San Francisco. I can't imagine there's much west of there. Let me Google it. So, unless they're supposed to be somewhere near the San Pedro Valley, or maybe Rancho Corral de Tierra, that area could have some good fertile farmland, now that I think about it. But if they continue west for much longer, they're going to reach the Pacific coastline, where they'd be trapped by Urko and his troops. Since Urko was the only gorilla with a name in this episode, it was quite difficult to tell who played which ape. So I'll go through the credits of the various gorillas now. The highest billed police gorilla in the episode was played by Brooklyn-born 47-year-old John Garwood, who had gone by the name Gabe DeLutri in his earliest Hollywood film days in the late 1950s and early 1960s. Dennis Cross was 50 years old when he filmed his role as the gorilla officer. He'd played small parts in more than 100 film and television productions. Beginning in the early 1950s, he would retire from acting in 1976. 45-year-old Michael Carr was frequently cast as a cop or a cowboy. He plays a little of both here as the patrol rider gorilla in this episode. And 39-year-old stuntman actor Fred Lerner, who did stunts in such films as Beetlejuice, Die Hard, and Ghostbusters 2, appears as a police gorilla. And that about wraps it up. I hope you enjoyed my discussion of the good seeds. Be sure to like, subscribe, and comment down below. And activate the notification bell so you'll know when I post my next review. And until then, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time on Old Joe's Reminiscence.